and welcome to Occupy Brooklyn TV. I'm James Green.
And I'm Leia Mondragon. Here are the top stories for today. The fight against the Spectra fracking pipeline approaches showdown in New York's Greenwich Village. The Disability Caucus of Occupy Wall Street rally for wheelchair rights and are arrested en masse. We'll give you an update on the rent strike of Sunset Park, Brooklyn, and their latest court battles. We have a special interview with OWS activist Mark Adams, recently released from Rikers Island. We'll introduce you to some of our comrades in the Occupy media and give you a heads up on the upcoming one-year anniversary of Occupy Wall Street.
We go now to Manhattan's West Side, where construction is set to begin on a controversial pipeline bringing frack gas into New York City. The plan, being carried out by Texas-based gas company Spectra Energy, endangers New Yorkers with exposure to radioactive radon gas. Protesters have been gathering at the site on the Hudson River Greenway every day since August 8th to voice their opposition to the project. We joined activists on Monday, August 13th, for the 5th day of the Spectra Showdown.
We're here this evening during the lovely New York, New Jersey sunset to smack down Spectra Energy. This is a Spectra Energy showdown. Spectra is the infrastructure builder in the New Jersey, New York expansion project that we are fighting. Chesapeake Energy is the fracker. And this evening, there is proposed earth-moving equipment that is going to be traversing Gansevoort Street, which is directly behind me, and it is also the entrance to the sanitation pier where the pipeline is going to rear its head, the 30-inch massive seismic lethal frack carcinogenic radioactive gas pipeline from Hoboken when it leaves under the Hudson River.
It's the same banks that are foreclosing on people in East New York are foreclosing on Earth.
Movements in the past generally move to direct action, we find, is because they realize the movement at some point, or the public realizes at some point, this isn't working anymore, we've hit a wall, right? We can't petition our way into change. So we have to take some other form of action, either to get people's attention or to stop an injustice, right?
I'm with the people against fracking and against the Spectra pipeline right now, which is a coalition with Reverend Billy and with Time's Up and with OWS Environmental Solidarity Working Group and a whole bunch of people here who are doing the Spectra Showdown. Right behind you, you can't see, there's the construction site on Gansevoort Peninsula right here where the sanitation pier is in the West Village, where Spectra Energy, a Texas-based gas and oil company, plans to start their construction for a gas pipeline, a fracked gas pipeline, which is going to be this 20-mile pipeline that's going to be shipping fracked gas from the Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania, which eventually will also be in our water reservoir in upstate New York too, because they're going to keep expanding their need and their outreach for fracked gas. And they're going to blast it through this 30 to 42-inch diameter pipeline, which is the same kind of pipeline that had the explosion in San Bruno, California, if you're aware of that. And they're going to then funnel it here under Staten Island, Jersey City, like right by the Statue of Liberty, by the Holland Tunnel, New Jersey Turnpike, Ban, New Jersey, under Jersey City, under the Hudson River, and then out here, and then it's going to be stored somewhere around and funneled into Con Ed, right here where there's this kids' playground, there's all these residential area compacted, condensed here, and the new Whitney Museum and the High Line and everything. So a company, Spectra Energy, with not a good record, not a good safety record at all, like horrible record in British Columbia, in Canada, and that have had explosions, that have had safety problems, and they just kind of just snuck this pipeline in right underneath us. You know, they got to pay for and have their own environmental impact statement through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, which doesn't act as an agency that, checks the ethics or the environmental, safety of these gas companies and oil companies. They just kind of just are an open and closing door and just let whatever comes through, as long as they fill out the paperwork. People get their requisite hearings, and get to speak their minds and get the comment period in there, and then they read it and it just goes right through. Bloomberg pushed it through Cuomo is definitely all about fracking. We're gonna be here and we're gonna show them our resolve. We're gonna show them our courage. And we're gonna show them that we're not waiting like they're not waiting. That we will not stop until they stop.
On August 16, 2012, supporters of the Disability Caucus of Occupy Wall Street rallied in front of Gracie Mansion during a party hosted by Mayor Bloomberg in celebration of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The rally was a call for more wheelchair-accessible taxi service in the city. Public transportation is extremely limited to people in wheelchairs, but yellow cabs are even less accessible. Some cab drivers with equipped vehicles may even opt out of providing the service altogether. Basic transportation needs of people with disabilities are thus made exceedingly difficult to meet. Mayor Bloomberg has publicly stated that he does not think wheelchair users should be out on the streets hailing cabs. As the protest continued, so did arrests. Due to the lack of wheelchair-accessible police cars, able-bodied protesters were separated from their comrades with disabilities. The remainder of the protest formed a group outside the mansion. They told the police that it was the people from the Disability Caucus who were responsible for the protest, and that those arrested were only their supporters. They stated they would refuse to leave until their supporters were released, or they'd be arrested too. The confrontation lagged on for about an hour while police scrambled to find a way to arrest and transport the protesters in wheelchairs. Finally, the police commandeered a number of Access-a-Ride vehicles. Access-a-Ride operators refused to cooperate with police, leaving the on-site supervisors for Mayor Bloomberg's party to operate the lifts and help police in the arrests. After processing at central booking, the police tried to reassure everyone that all people in wheelchairs would be provided with a ride home through Access-a-Ride. However, Access-a-Ride told police that they would have to book a day in advance and could not expect same-day service. Let's take a look at the protest.
Occupy Wall Street!
Occupy Wall Street!
In Gracie Mansion! The mayor is throwing a party! Right now! To honor the Americans with Disabilities Act!
My name is Simi Linton. I'm here for a number of reasons. I support several elements and factions in this group, but I'm also a plaintiff in the suit against the New York City Taxi and Limousine Commission because it is blatant discrimination that we have been denied access to taxis in New York City. Can hail a taxi, we shall not be moved just like a tree. Turn, we shall not be moved.
You're looking pretty stupid! I'm glad to do this! I'm glad to do this!
Excuse me?
Not in about 20 years, essentially, anymore.
25th birthday, Daddy. Huh?
Ready?
And 100 kilometers and Mayor Bloomberg is not supporting.
The rent strike of Sunset Park, Brooklyn continues, and so do the struggles of its organizers and supporters. On Monday, August 20th, the Red Hook Community Court was packed with supporters of Dennis Flores. Flores, an organizer with Occupy Sunset Park, was arrested on July 19th after defending 59-year-old disabled strike organizer Francisca Ixtilico from a physical attack by building superintendent Israel Espinoza. We spoke with Flores the morning of his arraignment.
So the morning of, and we woke up, these contractors who were sent over by the landlord, by the slumlord, they came to work on the electricity. And we wanted to inspect. You know, this is the first time these people ever showed up. And the tenant said, you know, we want to see what they're doing. So I followed two tenants, two ladies, into the basement. And as soon as they got into the doorway, the super was there, Israel Espinoza, who's standing across the street right now. He blocked them from going in. And his way of blocking in is like elbow checking a 65-year-old woman and then like pushing up or pinning her up against the corner. And he took a cheap shot at her and punched her, you know, directly in front of me, in front of other tenants. And I jumped in the middle, and as soon as he went to take a second swing, I grabbed him by his neck and I pulled him off of her, and I threw him to the side. You know, and the tenants went into the basement, and I followed them and, you know, started photographing and filming the conditions in the basement. And so this is why he wanted to block us from seeing. You know, the Department of Building Inspectors, HPD inspectors, they've been coming to this building for months, trying to get into the basement, trying to like document the conditions of this, like this garbage from the floor to the ceiling.
First you're giving your testimony to the police, and the next thing we know, they're bringing you out of the building. You've been in front of the building. Now we see you coming out of the building in handcuffs. What happened inside the building during that time that we don't see it on tape?
They took me into the basement and they yelled at me and threatened me and told me all kinds of things. Who the fuck do you think you are? What are you doing in? You know, like, what are you doing here? We're tired of your protesters. You need to leave. You're already getting what you want. They're coming to fix the electricity. You know, and I was like, you're interested in me, right? Because they know who I am personally. I've been organizing Cop Watch in Sunset Park for like the last 12 years. So these cops personally know who I am. I've documented them, you know, doing all kinds of abuse throughout the years, and they know me, and their focus was on arresting me. It's like, oh, now we got him finally. And here's this older woman who just got assaulted, who's being taken out of there in a stretcher, and they could care less about her. When I told them, why don't you not focusing on what happened to her? How come the super's not being arrested for assaulting her, and why is the focus on me? And they're like, we don't care about this bitch. Just like that. They said, we don't care about this bitch. She didn't get hit. Nobody assaulted her. Nothing happened. My position was just to stay like a monk and just like not respond, not react. They were looking for reasons, trying to like provoke me into like getting into a situation with them. And it was clearly to assault me and attack me while I was away from the public. And because I didn't feed into that, and I didn't even bother talking to them after a while, you know, they didn't get the reaction that they wanted. So as they were gonna try to take me out of the building, protesters saw what was going on and started yelling and chanting, and that's when the cops were afraid to take me out of the building by myself, and they then decided to arrest the super, so not to create a scene and act as if they're being fair somehow.
Both Flores and Espinoza were charged with assault at the turbulent hearing at which some supporters were ejected from the courtroom. Espinoza was served with an order of protection and can no longer live at the house. Tenants were jubilant, saying that this means an end to Espinoza's harassment of them. Rent strikers also packed the court on August 3rd at a hearing concerning the foreclosure of the building. We spoke with them outside the Kings County Civil Court.
And we're hoping that we will get a receiver and we no longer have to deal with Orazio Petito. That is what we are hoping for. That's what we are here. We also want the judge to see that we don't want just any other landlord to come in here with the intentions of pushing people out. So we're trying to voice as hard as we can to let them know that we want real change, real change. We are here so they can see that these are real people that live at, it's not just addresses and parcels and blocks of land. These are real families that live here, and we want them to know and that we are there and we are going to stay there. Yeah.
Landlord Orazio Petito made an appearance with an attorney who announced that he would no longer be representing Petito. The proposed new receivers of the building had not completed necessary paperwork, and the transfer was delayed.
On September 17th last year, people from across the country raced to the heart of New York's financial district to occupy Wall Street. Plans are now underway for the one-year anniversary of what is called S-17. 3 days of events are being planned starting on September 15th. Plans include mass civil disobedience as well as permitted convergences, assemblies, and concerts. A schedule of events is available on the site s17nyc.org.
Today we bring you an Occupy Brooklyn TV exclusive interview with Mark Adams. Adams was sentenced to 45 days in jail for charges associated with an action on December 17th of last year. He's the first activist convicted and sentenced to jail time in a group trial for an Occupy Wall Street action. 7 other defendants were sentenced to community service, including Bishop George Packard, Reverend Earl Coopercamp, and comedian Ted Alexandro. Adams was released from Rikers Island prison complex on July 16th after serving 29 days in jail.
You have been called the first Occupy Wall Street political prisoner from the movement. To what extent is your case or the sentence that you served in jail on Rikers Island unprecedented in the movement?
You know, before I answer that question, I just want to say that many people within the movement have done time, whether it was at the tombs or they've done time for personal reasons. So I do want to, just say that before I answer this question. So, however, as far as strictly talking about Occupy Wall Street as a movement is concerned, this was possibly, if I remember, the 3rd case from Occupy that went all the way through trial. But the first that ended up with convictions, including the first that ended up with a jail sentence. The other cases didn't.
Mark, tell us about Trinity Church's involvement in the case. They have tried to claim that they support the underlying goals of Occupy Wall Street, but we know that their participation was necessary for the case to move forward.
Yeah, from everything I've heard from my lawyer and from other folks is that if Trinity wouldn't have been present, the case couldn't have gone forward. So Trinity always had the option to step back and not press charges. However, Trinity, I feel, had an agenda. They wanted to make sure that their property, which they feel is their property, and folks had gotten on their property without permission. They wanted to press charges. They wanted to make sure that the message was heard loud and clear. Yes, Trinity says that they support the movement by opening up their public use space, Charlotte's Place, and their bathrooms, and However, these are things that they are open to public anyways. It's not that Trinity is going out of their way, or Rector Cooper is going out of his way to support the movement. To me, supporting the movement would have been to say, hey, we forgive you your trespasses, and it's not churches or a religious institution's business to put people in jail. There have been other, they had the faith community from around the world, including Bishop Desmond Tutu from South Africa, had commented on this whole action going back to D17, and we had a lot of support from the faith community. I mean, we had a bishop go into the park first. It's just unprecedented that a religious institution decided to press charges on folks who were seeking sanctuary on church property, or I don't even know if churches should own property, but anyways, church property, and they could have this could have ended up better and different than it did.
You mentioned the role of private property in the case. Can you talk about what claim Trinity Church has to the property that you were charged with trespassing on?
From all the evidence that was presented in court, Trinity apparently inherited this property from the Queen of England in 1705. This lot, along with all the other property they have inherited in Lower Manhattan, it came from the Queen. It's not property that they purchased. I don't even know how legitimate it is for a church to own millions of dollars worth of property, and they are the largest real estate holding company in Lower Manhattan. And this is a church we're talking about here. However, there is a family in Pennsylvania that has been is in a legal dispute with Trinity over the ownership of this lot, this Duarte Square lot. So that's the way it stands right now.
Can you tell us about the support that you received while you were on Rikers Island? I heard one guard said he hadn't seen so much mail since Lil Wayne was being held there. Yeah,
that's true. Actually, it was the whole thing was difficult. Before this, I had never been convicted of a crime ever. Doing time was difficult. I'm still dealing with it. Emotionally, it just takes time. But however, it could have been a lot worse if I didn't have the support of people within the movement, and support of my comrades was just overwhelming. I mean, I was getting letters almost every day. I'm going to say every day. I was getting books in the mail. I was allowed 2 visitations a week with 3 visitors on each visit, and I would get those. And
there was a wait list for those visits. Yeah.
And that's what I heard, and I was like, really, like, I didn't want to have any expectations because I didn't want to be let down. But I knew my family, my Occupy family, was behind me, and they came out in full force. And it was really it was much tougher. Doing any sort of time, even if it's like 10 days or whatever, when you're not eating. Being on a hunger strike for me was very hard. And it could have been, and more so than physical, emotionally was very hard. I'm still trying to recover from that. However, the support that I got inside jail, and support I got when I got out of jail it's support that people don't even get from their blood relatives, and it's been amazing. I've had 2 parties, one before and one after, all these books and mail, and it's just been this outpouring of love and support. So when people ask me what kind of world we're trying to build within Occupy Wall Street, this is the kind of world we're trying to build, a culture of care, and sometimes people don't realize that that's what we're trying to do here.
Do you want to say anything about your reasons for going on hunger strike while you were in?
Yeah, I will say that going in, I felt very powerless. It was almost like I didn't have the tools of protest that I usually have on the outside. I couldn't
when you were in prison.
Yeah, when I was in prison. And when I went in, it's not like I could hold a sign or rally or march and just let my grievances be known. And I knew that nobody would care. Nobody knew me on the inside. I could write all the letters I wanted with communiques, but it wouldn't have helped. for me personally, drawing inspiration from many other revolutionaries who've come before me, and even within the movement, folks like Jack Boyle and then Diego and my friend Mallory and Shay, who have done hunger strikes within Occupy Wall Street. It was I knew that I could count on that to protest in my way by using my body, and to let it be known that I felt that I should be free at this moment, and I'm not. So for me, going on a hunger strike was actually a very powerful political tool of protest, and I've gotten the support I've needed to come out of it, and it's been a lot of support, both medically as well as emotionally.
So it's almost like it was a way of retaining some personal power, or even like a sense of humanity.
Yes, I felt that this is something they couldn't take away from me. They could take away all my belongings. They could take away my signs. They could take away my even my rights. But this is something they couldn't tell me. Hey, you can't do this, because I could, and I felt very powerful doing that. And I felt that the movement felt very powerful through what I was doing. And if it wasn't for the support, I probably couldn't have done it. Especially the last week was very tough for me. A lot of people say that once you've gone through the first week or first 10 days, it gets easier. For me, it wasn't the physical, it was the emotional part that was very, very, very hard, very taxing. So, yeah.
You mentioned this kind of culture of care as being central to what Occupy Wall Street is trying to create. What would you say were the goals of the action that took place on December 17th? And to what extent do you think those have been achieved?
I think one of the things that, not talking specifically about the case, but I think one of the things that we've shown through our actions in Occupy is that our goal is to open up space that is public, should be public, and to open it up so we can build an alternate community where we can show so that we're showing through action what kind of world we want to see. It's easy for somebody to say, well, we don't want wars, and we want more books, and we want food for all, housing for all. However, we've tried to establish that community by using public space and building this culture and this community, and we need space for that. We can't do that without space. And we had that space for a short time at Liberty Square. We've tried to show that at Union Square, as well as actually sleeping on Wall Street. I think our goal was and remains to this day to try to build this community by using space. And it's not that we can always go into a space and are going to be allowed to be there. So we try to use our resources and use education as a tool to build this world, and so people can come and see we actually are walking the walk.
Mark, is there anything else that you want people to know about this case or about the trial of December 17th?
I'll say that.
Or about you.
Yeah, I will say that if many of my comrades right now in the movement are looking at some very serious charges. Some of these cases, whether they're the eviction cases, N17, and actually even some cases left over from D17 that had nothing to do with the park. Some of the folks are looking at some very serious charges, and I want them to know that the movement stands behind them. No matter what happens, there is a very strong community that is ready to support you. If you are going to look at time, and I hope that nobody else does, but know that there are people out there who are supporting you and are going to write to you and are going to take care of you. And even if you don't have family here in New York, like I didn't, Occupy will be your family. They're going to step in, and everything will be taken care of. Even with, I didn't have money in my commissary. Folks within Occupy took care of that. So I had money to buy juices that help sustain me, or to buy letter writing material, and you will be taken care of. And I just want folks to know that it's hard, but it's easier with the support of the Occupy family.
Mm-hmm. And I know just from my own experience of doing jail support and writing to you while you were serving your sentence, that it's really, I think, opened up a new awareness of the hundreds of thousands of people who are behind bars, for any number of politically motivated reasons, and so yeah, and just wanting to broaden our awareness of the prison industrial complex and how it works, and to support other prisoners. And so, is there anything that you want to ask people at home to do, or ways that they can, show support for people who aren't as fortunate as you to be on the other side yet?
Yeah, right now there are many political prisoners in jail doing time, like Hammond and others who have been part of our political prisoners, and it's important that folks pick up a pen and paper the old-fashioned way, because that's really the only way you can write to prisoners. And if you are gonna say write to your as a political prisoner that you are supporting, write a letter to them, but then write a second letter to somebody else who's doing time. And a lot of times, yes, we say write to political prisoners, but write to anybody, because I've met many folks on the inside who don't get any letters, and it was hard for them to see me getting all these letters, and somebody would come and be like, "Can I read your letter?" Because they aren't getting that support. They're being punished by a system that is punishing them for some very minor offenses that shouldn't even be crimes to begin with. So I think it's an uphill battle for us, but it's an important battle to fight against the prison industrial complex. But meanwhile, supporting folks in there by just putting money into their commissary or just writing them letters, I think that's something that anybody at home can do. And there are letter writing campaigns for political prisoners that happen in all cities, especially in New York City. And folks get together and do that. So please look it up and ask around, and you will find these communities that do that and take care of political prisoners.
Awesome. Mark, thanks so much for your courage and your strength, and for the inspiration that you provide for all of us in the movement.
Thank you so much.
OccupyWallStreet.net is a website that has been reporting news and analysis of relevance to the Occupy movement. We sat down with Rebecca Manski, who has played an integral role in the website, and she talked to us about the work that goes into operating the site.
When Occupy Wall Street started, a lot of media makers came down to the park, and they started producing their own media, and they generated a lot of media autonomously, which was fantastic, but there was no centralized location for democratically decided upon content that people would discuss on a team in a transparent, open, inclusive way according to a horizontal consensus-based process which the rest of the movement adhered to. So the media arena was an area in which there was a lot of autonomy, which was fantastic, but it was also a space in which there wasn't, there were people speaking for themselves, and there was no central consensus-based voice for the movement. So OccupyWallStreet.net aims to be not the voice of the movement by any means, but a space in which is open to anybody who wants to come and contribute their skills as media makers, learn something about creating media, and generate stories about this movement within a consensus-based horizontal process. The people who really spread the word about coming out in the streets via Facebook and via various website properties and made sure that we had a presence online, that's Tech Ops. So these are people who are really well connected in many ways to software developers and who are themselves developers and visionaries about open source software. Some of the original developers are still involved in helping to tweak different aspects of the website, and we definitely need more developers to step up and join the ranks of the people who are still around. Like all of the working groups and affinity groups of Occupy Wall Street and teams like OccupyWallStreet.net, dozens of people with immense talent came together to produce the foundations of this site, and now we need more people to step up to replace some of those people. For quite a long time, I would say back in the 90s, the essence of the counter-globalization movement that I got involved in when I was a kid was all about recognizing that the media is not going to tell the story the way it actually happens on the ground, and that it's up to us to generate our own telling of the story, and that we now have access to many tools that weren't available to our parents' generation and to any other generation prior, and it's our responsibility to learn how to use these tools and then to just tell our story extremely well and to tell it professionally and to disseminate the story widely. So that's something that we knew back in the 90s, and we started to develop kind of effective templates for telling our story. And then that knowledge got lost for a few years, and luckily the younger generation that started Occupy Wall Street got really excited about doing it all over again. And those of us who had been doing it all along throughout the 90s as media activists were ready and present and ready, like available to plug in to basically what was a 20 to 25-year-old movement of people who really were fed up with the really, really shallow narratives that they were seeing displayed on the streets, or not on the streets, on the airwaves. And fundamentally what this is all about is Occupy Wall Street called out an elephant in the room. There were absolute taboos around talking about economic inequality 1 year ago. There were taboos around talking about debt 1 year ago. All of the talk was around austerity and cutting programs. And because we told our own story with conviction and courage, over and over and over again, repeat, no, this story is not that we need to cut programs. The story is that we need to address the sources of inequality. We eventually got the attention of the media. Staying true to course in the context of Occupy Wall Street news gathering is telling the stories of real people and believing in telling the stories of real people. And so quality for us means being really, really careful not to get off that track, and really going to the people who are hardest hit and at the front lines of the economic crisis, and people who are also most aware of the global crisis that we're in, climate change, etc. And allowing them to speak for themselves. So quality means knowing how to ask those people the proper questions and eliciting narratives from them, and then knowing how to present those stories in a way that's true to their original message. Content comes certainly from very active people in Occupy Wall Street. It comes from philosophers in Occupy Wall Street. It comes from the people who spend their time writing, There are some of us, I wish I could be writing this whole time, like this whole year-long process. I wish I could have been kind of like observing and analyzing and then generating content. Some people, that became their role, and they became absolutely invaluable to the rest of us. And so we have some very, very proficient, very skilled writers within this movement. So we draw upon them regularly, and we republish their content from their blogs and highlight them and give them an opportunity to get more views. And then we also have like people who go to actions and report on the actions and tell the story from our perspective rather than allowing the media to tell the story for us. I think we could say in a year, the level we're at now, we can maintain that. But certainly the ambitions are not to be where we are now, but to bring in more and more people. And there's no doubt that we need more a more diverse perspective within the team about what kinds of articles need to be published. I would like us to go beyond what within the movement. What's often like the actions generally are around stop and frisk, student debt, and housing foreclosures. And now more focused on fracking, and it would be really nice to be able to push beyond that in our coverage, actually. And so if we had more people on the team, we could potentially, really, really blow up the site and cover more than those issues. When you work within the consensus process, you need to have convictions and you need to be flexible. To have no opinions is not a contribution, and neither is to be unwilling to yield in a discussion. So that's a skill that some of us have who've worked within the consensus process for years and years. that's one skill. Another skill is to be able to kind of like to take a step back from Occupy actually, and to see what resonates with average people, and actually be able to kind of have any sense of perspective on what actually matters to people outside of this activist circle. That's a skill also. And then there's a whole arena or a whole set of media skills that obviously we need. We need people who can write and people who can edit and people who know what good video and audio is, and what that means is really, really not that subjective actually. Like, once you have you know good writing when you read it, you know good audio when you hear it. It's writing and audio and visuals that have a rising and falling action, that tell a story in a cogent way, that respect the people's attention spans and how much work they have to do in their day and how much time they have to give to trying to like decipher the meaning within a particular piece. So that's something that takes years to develop, and within the space of the OccupyWallStreet.net team, we have some people who've been doing this for years and some people who are new, and so it would require a certain level of humility, like willingness to learn what this process is all about. I would like us to be a site that is reliable, actually. That's reliable and that is stimulating in a way that's not stimulating just because it caters to the least common denominator, and not just because it provokes. In like the world we live in today, people are only attracted to media sites in 80% of cases because they're provoked. And I would like us to attract people because we inspire, and we inspire people to action.
And that's our show for today. Join us next week when we sit down with Jazz Hayden, Harlem activist and creator of the program Cop Watch. I'm James Green.
And I'm Leia Mondragon. See you next week.
Occupy Public Access TV is a newly emerging network of community news shows produced and broadcast by ordinary citizens on public access television. We seek to create a network of independently operated shows working cooperatively, sharing content, news, labor, resources, and practical experience. We take advantage of the broadcast quality facilities made available by the Brooklyn Public Access Television Studios to produce and broadcast our show, and we encourage other Occupy groups around the city and around the country to do the same. Editorial meetings take place online, and we encourage newcomers to join in the conversation. We're seeking people who can speak on issues and news items of current significance. Tips for local breaking news stories are always welcome. We're also looking for people to get involved with all aspects of the show. You can participate in the conversation about producing the show by joining our public Google group and saying hello. Episodes are made available for viewing through our website, but community media is not a spectator sport, so find a way to get involved. And that's our show for today. Join us next week when we sit down with Jazz Hayden, Harlem activist and creator of the program Cop Watch. I'm James Green.
And I'm Leia Mondragon. See you next week.